Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 82 of Buds and Blue Jays, your place for all things related to the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm your host, Jesse Burrell, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Riley McConnell. And Riley, it may be cold and snowy in this part of southeastern Ontario, but if you really look at it and you look for it, there are signs that spring training is near. In fact, a small town in Dunedin, Florida, pitchers and catchers have officially reported, which means, Riley, it is officially baseball season. So today on our show, we're going to go off our spring training preview here. We're going to talk about which players are we looking forward to seeing this spring? Which storylines do we want to follow? And who are going to win these key positional players that we have in going out of camp this year? We have that and so much more, guys. But remember, our show is free and available on all platforms. So if you're watching us on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. We are rapidly growing and we want you guys to be a part of that as well. And if you're out in podcast land, guys, 5 stars only. It really is the best way to help this show grow. But Riley, you in the mood for spring or what? How do you feel today?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a chilly one out there, man. I was doing a little work earlier, and don't I know baseball is here, man. Mm-hmm. It's in the air. It just smells differently out there, and information starts to come on. You see, the different Twitter accounts that we all follow kind of open back up again, if you want to call it that, and give us reports from around the league. Lucky for you listeners and you viewers that we got you covered for that. Everything Toronto Blue Jays, of course. If you want something to do with the other 29 teams, you can probably look elsewhere. But if you're listening or watching, you're probably a Blue Jays fan. God bless you. Jesse, I'm excited for this one, man. I mean, there's a lot to talk about with this Blue Jays team. I mean, it is a very different looking team from last year. I know that only a few moves were made, really, but I mean, the infield looks the same kind of. Pitching's changed quite a bit, and the outfield is completely different. So, Jesse, I mean, without further ado, man, I mean, lead us off, man. I mean, where do we even start to predict with this team?
There's a lot goes on in spring training here. And I just want to go out with the caveat, that, hey, wins and losses don't matter. Like if the Jays go out into spring and we lose the first 7 games, don't sweat it. These games don't matter. In fact, Riley, can you tell me what the Blue Jays record was in spring training last year or in 2021?
I mean, you said it was 15 games. I'm going to guess we were maybe 7-8 if I was to guess.
Jays went 9-6 last year, which they only played 15 games. I don't remember if that was weird or if that's just a score bug error on MLB.com, but who knows, Riley? Riley, do you know how we did in 2021?
Oh, I couldn't even tell you. I'm going to say that we had, if you give me that number, I'm going to say we had one more win than we did losses.
No, so we actually went 16-9 in 2021. The Jays had the second best record in the Grapefruit League. But of course, the Jays didn't even make that playoffs that year, missing out by 1 game. Do you know who had the best record in spring training that year, Riley? The Miami Marlins. And they went on to lose 95 games that year. So again, wins and losses don't matter. Obviously, we want to see the Blue Jays win games more often than they lose games. And there is something to be said, I guess, about getting a winning culture in here. But just to go back to my point that spring trainings don't matter, Riley, in 2013, we had a Toronto Blue Jay lead all of spring training in batting average. And if you know who this is, or if fans know who this is, you're a Blue Jays sicko right there. But do you want to take a stab at the name?
I mean, there's 13 Jays don't really ring a whole lot of bells, but I'm going to go with, was Jorge Bonifacio on that team?
Emilio Bonifacio?
Emilio Bonifacio. Yes. Emilio Bonifacio is my guess. I think he might have been 2011, 2012 Blue Jays, or either that or Juan Francisco is my guesses.
Wow, great Blue Jays names there. It was Munenori Kawasaki who led all of spring training in batting average that year, and you know how his career turned out here. So please don't freak out if we see Vladimir Guerrero go 3 for 21 this spring, or if Dalton Varsho goes 12 for 18 and hits 5 home runs. These stats don't matter, but there are some things you should look for in spring training. For example, in 2021, Alek Manoah showed up at spring. Dominated all spring. We sent him to Buffalo. He dominated. And look at the career that Alek Manoah has had so far this in his major league career. Jose Berrios, for example, came into spring training last year and was quite bad. And then we get into the regular season, and everyone's saying, oh no, Jose Berrios has the track record. He's going to turn around. He gave up 7 earned runs in the first 3 innings of the game last year. So these are things that you can pay attention to and take it with a little grain of salt going forward. So yeah. That's what I got there, Riley.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely tell when a player isn't ready for the MLB, or they struggle in spring training. You'll see a lot of different players and around the league. You can watch other teams too, guys you probably never even heard of and things like that have maybe had their cup of coffee, or going to get one this year for the first time, maybe just added to the 40-man roster and getting a taste of spring ball, things like that. But I mean, man, we kind of know what the guys on this team do. Our core guys are there, and I mean, a good spring, Jesse, is I want our pitchers to be throwing. I don't want to see a guy pitch more than probably I think 50 pitches in an outing is plenty. It's a good workload, doesn't strain the arm too much, and especially for the hitters, I mean, you're going to see a lot of rotations in and out, but keep the guys healthy. You don't want a pitcher, and they don't, managers are smart, pitching coaches are smart. They're not going to let guys get hung out to dry out there, and throw a lot of pitches. So we're going to use, 7, 8, 9 pitchers in a game. Who knows? But, that's my main takeaway from spring training, just before we get into it, is that, it's not these games really, they matter for individuals and prepping for the regular season, but they don't really matter. You want to just end it and be as healthy as a team as you can, coming into the regular season, man. So the same thing I said last year, same thing we both said, just like, you play smart out there, playing smart baseball will keep you healthy.
And that's the thing. That's the big takeaway, I guess. When we are done spring and we're looking back at what happened this spring, we just want to avoid getting hurt, right? Like, you can't win the AL East in the month of February and March. But you could lose it if there was a big injury, right? Like, remember in 2015 when Marcus Stroman got hurt going into the 2015 season and was out almost all year, right? I remember Michael Saunders was another one too who injured himself in spring. Just stay healthy, everybody. If we can get through spring injury-free, I think we're going to be in a good spot.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, Stroman's still playing. Saunders' career's done, but yeah, I mean, if your arm's sore, tell the coaches, they'll understand. Get a young guy in. I mean, I'm sure he's itching to be playing anyways. If you're a guy who's probably going to be in the starting 9, if one day Kirk says, not at 100%, then probably not a good idea to put him in the lineup. But we know the business on that sense. We got games to get through this. It's it's just a game simulation practice is what it is for us against, other real teams around the league. So, I mean, just keep it healthy, play smart ball, and get to the regular season in good shape.
All right, and before we get into individual storylines and individual players who want to say it, guys, I want you to keep these 6 things in mind when we are watching the Blue Jays play spring training. By the way, first of all, we're going to be able to watch more on TV than we ever have before, because we mentioned last episode that every single Blue Jays home spring training game is now going to be televised, which is great for us, great for the viewers, great for Blue Jays Nation. So keep that in mind. Keep these 6 things in mind, I guess, while we're watching this team. 1, there is some level of correlation. It's not all random, remember, right? Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is still Vladimir Guerrero Jr., right? Santiago Espinal is still Santiago Espinal. Like, they're going to hit like we think they're going to hit. So keep that in mind. But remember, it's only about 3 weeks worth of games too, right? Any player can have a cold 3 weeks, a hot 3 weeks during the course of the regular season. Let's not amplify it more just because it's the first time we're seeing them during spring training. Also, another thing to remember that every single type of player is facing a different type of quality of competition, right? Some teams might go out and throw their best pitchers, but some guys might want to start a double-A guy against a lineup full of big leagues just to get a look there and see how they feel. So it's not every team's best versus best as we go out here. And the Jays historically, I've noticed this in the last few spring trainings, they might do it again, is they play a lot of Pittsburgh, Detroit, New York, and Baltimore in spring training because they're just the teams that are like geographically closest to the Toronto Blue Jays. And historically, what they've done is they've taken their big starters. So like this year would be Kevin Gausman, Alek Manoah, and Chris Bassett. And they've purposely not scheduled those pitchers against guys like the Yankees or Baltimore because they see those guys a lot throughout the course of the regular season. And they don't want to give their hitters more looks against our top arms to give them an advantage going forward. So I think that is kind of cool and something to pay attention to going into the season.
I mean, yeah, the number one tool you have on the ball field, Jesse, is this. It's your brain, man.
Yes.
And the more you see a pitcher, unless it's Hall of Fame talent, or it doesn't even matter. I mean, guys could hit Nolan Ryan well, and guys can hit Pedro well, and maybe a guy hit Randy Johnson well. You see a guy enough and read the scouting reports and watch the tape and, have good at bats, you're going to be hit off the pitchers well. So I do like that. And I'm sure that's not just a theory. I mean, it's probably not publicized from our coaching staff. It's just smart baseball, Jesse, because in those big situation games down the stretch, let's say August, and the Yankees have only seen Kevin Gausman once.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably going to have, he's going to maybe be more successful than if they've seen him and 2 more starts prior to that. So, I mean, I like it. Baseball is, it's a lot more thinking on the coaching side than one may think. So I like that, man. Protect your stars at all costs.
What's the old adage? Baseball is a thinking man's game. Well, or what's the quote? 1/2 is physical, the other 90% is mental. Something along the lines of that is the quote there.
Yeah, I know. Just think and hit the ball hard, man. And
that's right.
I mean, that's just in head down, run it out. Those are the things. That's what it takes to be a successful ball player. And you don't have to make the flashy plays, but don't make a lot of errors at your position.
Looking at you, Mr. Bo Bichette. No hard feelings there. But 3 more things to pay attention to. Remember, guys, the ballparks are a mess too. These aren't major league ballparks they're playing in, so things like park factors and stuff might change. The players still might not be 100%. A lot of these players are ramping up from either a very minor throwing program or they haven't seen a lot of reps, so keep that in mind too. And sometimes, Riley, players are just working on things on spring training, especially the veteran players, the guys who already know they have a spot on the roster. Like, I remember Zach Greinke one time went out to spring training and just thought, hey, can I get through an outing using nothing but off-speed pitches? And he went out and tried it. And I remember Zach Greinke also, because he's an interesting guy, this guy, once tried to throw a curveball at exactly 69 miles per hour just because he could say he could do it. So there might not be things to that extreme, but maybe it's like Matt Chapman only wants to swing at fastballs in a certain zone, right? Or that's what he goes for, or whatever it may be to try to improve their game. This is the time where players experiment on that type of stuff. So just keep that in mind if a player is struggling during spring training.
I was really hoping you were going to start that little part off with Zach Greinke was messing with whatever stuff, and he went out and threw an inning left-handed is what I really wanted to what I really wanted to come out of your mouth there. I was waiting for it, and they said only off, and I'm like, man, that's not as fun, making the game interesting. No, of course he didn't do that. Let's not be ridiculous here. But yeah, absolutely, man. Like you got to look at certain parts of your game, and you saying that, Matt Chapman looking for those, like whatever his select pitch, his midsection high fastball inside that he can absolutely rope into left field. The same things could go for hitters like Bo Bichette, maybe on, plate discipline, breaking balls on the outside part of the plate. I mean, he does a great job at taking the ball the other way, but yeah, it's more of a pitch recognition thing too. So yeah, however they decide to handle their approach, whether it's a hitter or a pitcher, I'm sure that they have a plan in mind. The coaches have a plan in mind for them, and if they can, come together and create a good results in spring training and carry that on for 162 games or less for whatever they play in the regular season.
All right. Well, we got the caveats out of the way, Riley. Let's get into the nitty gritty here. And hey, look, hope springs eternal every spring, right? So what are you looking for? Is there a player or a storyline you're looking to watching the most? Your eyes are going to be glued on this spring training.
So right off the top, let's roll the tape back to 2021 and let's look at the year that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had.
Yeah,
he was second in MVP voting, only behind a dominant Shohei Ohtani. Last year, he did not have an offensive season that was what I think is going to be statistically average for him. I think that will be, when you look back, a below average year. And I think that comes down to, it really is. I mean, this is a guy who's already hit over 45 home runs once in his career. And I believe if you can hit 45 home runs, you could probably hit 50. But Jesse, the fences are in the air. The fences aren't placed on the ground. So
100%.
Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is an exceptional ball player. He has a lot of tools that make him good. He won a Gold Glove over the offseason. First base, you don't have to be a wizard on the field, but to win a Gold Glove in the AL at first base, still a very good accomplishment. No Silver Slugger attached to that, and he didn't hit 40 home runs. He didn't, drive in the runners. He did, and a lot of the times, Jesse, he had a lot of ground ball outs. If they were hard hit, if you hit a ball 105 miles an hour, that's great, but if you hit it into the third baseman's mitt, it's just a loud out, man. That's, so whatever he wants to work on in spring training, that's great. But for what I'm seeing, man, I want to see right out of the gate. For sure, I would love the first game of spring training, because Vladdy, let's say he gets 2 at-bats a spring training game. If he can rope a double, draw a walk, and then the next game get 3 plate appearances and hit a single, walk, and maybe a loud fly out, and then the next game 2 at-bats and he walks and homers in his next at-bat, something like that. Let's not sell Vladdy short. He's a superstar. He is what we should round this team, or we should center the talent around him and build around him. And I think we've done a good job at that. I'm really focused on watching him hit. I really, really hope that he can go back to the 2021 power numbers. He's got the power. His numbers last year does not represent how he will play, I think, on a year-to-year basis from here on, Jesse. We're heading into the 2023 season. If you go back to 2018 and look at Vladimir Guerrero Jr., you almost would think to yourself, 2023 sounds like a year where Vladdy's going to pop off. He did come into the big leagues at a young age. But 2023 for Vladdy sounds like a good year. Like if I was to look back at this 5 or 6 years ago with the age he was and coming up through our system and everything, I'm counting on big power numbers here, man. And change the launch angle in your swing, maybe make some adjustments because he's got raw power, man. He's hit home run. He's got raw power. He can hit to all fields and pull the ball extremely well, Jesse. So yeah, dude, if right off the top, just to address it, my eyes will be more glued to Vlad's bat than any other facet of the game right now in spring training.
Riley, I love it when we come on here and we are both on the same page, because my number one storyline to watch this spring was exactly that. It is Vladimir Guerrero's launch angle, and I want to see him to take this ball, and I want to see him to elevate it and to crush it. Because in his 2021 MVP season, his launch angle is about 9.4 degrees. Last year, it was down to 4, and you've hit the nail on the head. You can hit a ball hard, but if it's right at somebody, it's still an out. Do your damage. This team is only going to go as far as Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s bat can take us, and I don't think it's an accident that when he elevates, and he's hitting that pitch especially low in the zone, because we talked about it down the stretch last year. Some teams figured you can pitch Vladdy low in the zone, and he can get himself out. So if he can find a way to take that pitch, hammer it down the line, or get some loft on it, Vladimir is going to be special, and I want to see how he does this spring if he can elevate those balls.
He gets a lot of close pitches too, Jesse. This is not a guy that you pitch to every at bat. Mm-hmm. Sooner or later, a pitcher's going to miss. If you want to throw him a ball low and outside, 3 times in a row, that's fine. But the next time he comes up to the plate, you miss with one of those, and you hang at center of the plate, and it's center low. Look out, because Vladdy's going to do some damage, and that should be the pitch he does damage on. Vladdy should let the pitches come to him. He's already proved that he is a feared hitter in Major League Baseball, and I think there's a lot of pitchers' minds when he steps up to the plate that he could easily pop off and hit a ball 440 feet over the left field wall. I think that's got to be a thing that in pitchers' minds. So yeah, absolutely, whatever it takes for him to make the adjustments, because maybe if it's a swinging too hard thing, I always had that in my mind that maybe Vladdy swung the bat too hard. I'm not a professional hitter. I only went as far as I did, and it certainly wasn't because of my bat. So whatever it is for Vlad that needs to, take it back and go back to 48 home runs. It's those adjustments have got to be, and a lot of it, hey, guys have down years. It's a lot luck based sometimes, but this isn't really luck based. There is a clear distinguishment between those 2 years, and it does have to do with, it's not how hard he's hitting the ball, it's where he's hitting the ball, and it's being hit on the ground as opposed to being a fly ball or a home run.
Set the tone early here this spring, get out to a hot start, and carry that momentum with you throughout the course of the year. It's going to do good things. Riley, another hitter that I am really excited to see this spring is one of George Springer. And I think George Springer is more of an X factor for this team than a lot of people think. Remember last time we saw George Springer, Riley, he was being carted off the field with concussion and a knee injury. And it was also reported this offseason that he was dealing with bone spurs in his elbow, that he had a little minor surgery to touch up on. And you could even see it in his swings. George Springer used to always have that good, quick, two-handed follow through his swing. And there were times, especially in the second half last year, he was letting go of that backhand. It was more of a one-handed release, which could cause you to see things in your elbow, like maybe not go for it that well. And he even mentioned in a quote with Shai Davidi article, he said, you know how hard it is to play baseball when you can only have one hand and you can't do it. So that could explain why George Springer had a little bit of a power decline in the second half. I remember he went through there was a good extended 3-week period where he didn't have any home runs or so. So watch for this, because I think especially after trading Teoscar Hernandez, we did lose some offensive thump, and we're going to really need George Springer, one, to stay healthy, and two, to be a high impact offensive piece for the Blue Jays to really reach their ceiling of where they think they can go this year.
So I don't know how many times I've said this, but when you say George Springer, the first thing I attach to it is probably the best power leadoff hitter of all time.
Right.
And he is not a young player. He is not a guy who is fresh legged or, has the bat speed that he once did, but George Springer is still an effective player on the field and a very important member of this Toronto Blue Jays team. We know what our record is with this guy in the lineup. And I mean, if you want to call Vladimir Guerrero Jr. the cornerstone piece for this team, I mean, George Springer, is kind of right behind him in a lot of different ways, man. George Springer has played a lot of games in center field for us. I wish he didn't have the problems he did of injuries and health and whatever else.
Yes.
There's not too many good years left for George Springer for baseball. I'm hoping, I know he's an X factor and he's a hell of a ball player, Jesse, but all things considered, man, Father Time has not been good and will remain not being good to this man as far as things go. So if he could just, again, be do the appropriate things in spring training, get his 2 or 3 at-bats in a game, be mindful of where playing defensively and not getting hurt that way, and same thing, looking for pitches. George Springer can drive the ball the other way. He's got great power to the alleys, man. He's not much of a pull or slap hitter, but man, he can rip the ball down the alley, and we've seen him with the leadoff home run. I mean, the lag speed is kind of not really there anymore, but yeah, the bat speed definitely concerns me. Maybe facing a guy in spring training would be good for George Springer, to see a guy, that's maybe going to start on a AAA team in Pittsburgh or Detroit or somewhere like that, where he can, probably hit against a guy, help build his confidence, and get those live ABs, get that under your belt, and then move forward from there, because we're going to probably need George Springer a lot this year on the side of the stick. Like you said, Jesse, we lost a little bit of power with Teo. Still really up in the air what Varsho is going to do, but George Springer is a guy that can supply power for us. And I think it's great that we're, kind of probably going to use him at the DH spot or a corner field more often. So, I mean, hey, this would be a great season for George Springer to supply a lot of power to this Blue Jays order.
So I think the main question is, how much of Springer's season last year was Father Time catching up to them, or how much was it the elbow injury that was carting off? I would bet that it was more so to do with the elbow than it was to old age and getting skill. Because you watch George Springer walk around in some of the few clips we've seen this spring, he still looks good. He still looks like a spring chicken. He doesn't look like your typical 34-year-old. So we'll see how it goes this season, Riley. And that's just something to watch for. Watch his swing decisions correctly. When you see his swing follow through, does he look like he's getting power from that elbow? If it is, I think he's going to be in a good spot. But Riley, give me another name or another storyline that you are looking to watch for this spring.
So, here's another thing, and I'll kind of tie them all in. I could go out there. There's some things that I just expect. One of the things I kind of expect, I'm not talking about right now, and as far as pitchers go, Jesse, I'm not talking about a Jose Berrios. I'm not talking about a Kevin Gausman or Manoah. I'm talking about Jose Berrios is exactly who I'm focusing on, who takes the hill for us, man. When he's in on spring training games, I will be, if I'm watching Vladdy take his at-bats, I am watching Jose Berrios and how he pitches, because, man, He's going to pitch for this game healthy. If he's healthy for every start, he's going to start 32 games for us. Last year, we know what happened last year, man. 32 games for which should be at least 4 or 5 innings at least are in his hands. This, Jesse, it's not a problem, but it's a little bit of a concern. What version of Jose Berrios are we going to get? I saw him play for the Twins. He did fantastic early on in his career. He had like a few, maybe even a single digit amount of starts, and he had an 8 ERA in his first cup of coffee season. And then he took off for the Twins. And when he came to Toronto, he had a great little second half with us, man. I thought he pitched really well. But Jesse, we just can't have this happen again. His 2022 year, when you look at his baseball card, or if you right now go on Baseball Reference, it looks absolutely disgusting to compared to any of his numbers, man. We gave up a big price for Jose Berrios because Simeon Wood Richardson is probably going to be starting for the Twins this year. I would think. And there's a really good chance that Austin Martin's not too far off. And those are 2 huge prospects that we got for this guy. Man, I pray. Like, I felt bad. A lot of people were harping on him. At the end of the day, Jesse, I really just felt bad for him because I know how good of a pitcher he is, man. I'm praying for it, man. Every pitch, I'm sure as hell going to be nervous, man. But as if I'm watching Vladdy's ABs, I'm watching where Jose Berrios is throwing that fastball. I'm checking where it says the little dot and the 90. I hope it says 96 or 95. That's what the numbers I want to see. If it's not, there's a lot of concern with that. And walking guys, can't have him walking guys because he can strike out. I mean, Christ, he had our biggest strikeout game last year. I don't know what it's. Yeah, I mean, when he's on, he can be on, but we just can't have him just basically fall off like he did last year.
For what it's worth, Riley, Jose Berrios has already reported to camp. He's been throwing more than anybody else because he is pitching for Puerto Rico in the World Baseball Classic. So he is here. And I think the Blue Jays have already kind of figured out what they need to do. They've tried a lot last year. Remember, he started this season on the third base side of the rubber, shifted to the first base side of the rubber. But what it was a lot of inconsistency with his pitch and his release point. And so I was actually reading an article through Shai Davidi before we got on here. The Jays have actually come up with a plan now on how they're going to fix Jose Berrios. So I guess these are the things to watch for this spring to make sure they get it. And I'm going to give you some quotes here. One, Jose Berrios said, quote, "My release point was inconsistent. It was changing pitch by pitch." Now, we heard some of that throughout the course of the season, that teams were able to pick up on his pitches. And that's probably why his fastball got crushed so much. One, because the location was terrible. But two, it's so much easier to hit a fastball if you know a fastball's coming, right? So he started working on some of his movements. And here are some of the movements that Jose Berrios is going to be working on. One, he said he's going to maintain a steady eye level with the plate by ensuring his head doesn't lean from one side or to the other and is aligned with his spine so he can get more torque to deliver that pitch. And moving to the middle of the rubber should help with that. Number two, he's going to be more consistently aggressive driving off his back leg, which makes sense. You're a pitcher. You use your back leg to generate power and stuff, which could help your stuff play up a little bit. And the last thing was he was going to stay firm on his front side, keep his glove tight to the inside of his body, preventing him from opening up and dragging his trail arm to get a more consistent release point. So it sounds like the Blue Jays have come up with a plan and something that Jose Berrios has bought into. So let's see if it works and it can get consistent here. Because if that release point is consistent, because Berrios' curveball is still nasty. His two-seamer was actually the nastiest individual pitch thrown by a Blue Jay this year. So the stuff is still here. He's just going to get that more consistent. And if he can do it and watch for that this spring, then look out. We could have old Jose Berrios back.
So why he even faltered like that? It's kind of boggles me. You say all these great points, by the way, Jesse. Absolutely, and I hope that he does. Exactly those things. If you're a scout watching from the Guardians or the Red Sox, just stop watching the video now. But obviously, public knowledge for what he has to do. Obviously, public knowledge for what he has to do on the mound, Jesse. I mean, yeah, if you're tipping your pitches, if you're releasing the ball here on the fastball versus here on a breaking pitch, I mean, the guys are going to pick that up, and I mean, it's going to, increase the opponent's OPS like by a monstrous amount over time. the fact that Jose Berrios is at camp working and probably working on these exact things, I think is very important. He started last year on opening day for us. He will be probably getting the forced start for us of the regular season this year. And I think that's deserved. I think it's warranted. He knows he had a bad year. He wants to bounce back from this, Jesse, or he'll get booed right out of the Rogers Center.
Ooh.
It's just a fact, man. I won't be the one booing him, but man, he's making a lot of money. He can do it, man, but there's a lot riding on him for this season. We need him. We have the players to win a pennant. I mean, we got, probably one of the best, if not the best first baseman in all of baseball. We got two pitchers who could change, could easily, win a Cy Young award this year in Kevin Manoah. Or Kevin Gausman and Alek Manoah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, we got a lot of different tools that we can use for this team. And Jose Berrios is also one of those guys. But I mean, he's got a lot of work to do. And I do wish him the best, but I'll be watching every pitch he throws and just hoping that the ball hits the catcher's mitt and in the spot where either Jansen or Kirk sets up, and it results in weak contact, a swing and a miss. I don't want to see him go out in spring training, Jesse, and give up, a wall scrape, even if a wall scraper home run to a guy who is a 20-year-old the guy getting its double-A taste this year or something. I want to see something, extraordinary out of him in spring training and kind of go from there. Because yes, Jesse, you did say, and full disclosure, spring training games do not matter for a lot of things. You can go 3 for 40, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
But if you're Jose Berrios, Jesse, this very much matters. And people are going to be watching. It's not just me.
If anything, to get the confidence up, right? Just to show that, hey, I can be dominant. I can be effective again. It should be a good thing. But remember, he will be playing more, I guess, elite competition games because he is going to the World Baseball Classic. So let's watch Team Puerto Rico and let's watch how Jose Berrios does there, because it'll be very important to the success of the Toronto Blue Jays. Riley, I'm going to group these things kind of really quickly here about other things I want to see. One, Kevin Gausman was forced to change his new delivery because of the new balk rules that are coming in. So we've already seen him in some bullpen sessions. Watch for this when we get to see Kevin Gausman start. A lot of it is the front foot. You know how he kind of rocks on his delivery and stuff. Now he's got to kind of keep that front foot planted before he starts. So let's keep an eye on that. And then two names, Riley. One, Nate Pearson. He's healthy, at least for now, right? And we've already got to look at him throwing some stuff and things. I know the stuff is still so good. I know he's getting older and I know he's barely been effective, but plus, Riley, we also have our bet on how many innings pitched Nate Pearson's going to throw this year. So if he comes out and looks good in spring, that's good for me. So I'm on board with that. And the last name, Riley, is Ricky Tiedemann. Like, if this guy comes out and dominates spring like Alek Manoah did in 2021, he could actually compete for a spot in this rotation. If Mitch White and Yusei Kikuchi still don't have it, like, we could be begging for Ricky Tiedemann to come up there. Let's watch and see how this guy goes. If he comes up to spring and he dominates, Ricky Tiedemann could be the talk of spring and could be a high impact piece. So Riley, those three things: Gausman, Pearson, Tiedemann. Any thoughts on those?
So yeah, I saw that too, and I didn't know exactly how. I just kind of read the article on the balk thing there with Gausman. He does have a very deceptive kind of delivery. It's almost like, your power pitch, and he rocks on that foot and kind of has. It's because starting pitchers, the deal. They a lot of relievers pitch from the stretch, and Kevin Gausman almost pitches, I'll call it like a fancy stretch, where he kind of rocks and then he'll set up and throw. But as far as that things goes, it could mess with them a little bit, or it could mess with them a lot. So let's hope that he can just simplify the whatever delivery style he goes with, or whatever he does with that front foot. Let's hope that should be a problem that is just nipped at the butt and not an issue moving forward, because I don't want to see a lot of balks. That's just a silly baseball error that doesn't need to happen. Yeah, man, I like Nate Pearson being healthy is great. And dude, never let your dreams die, Jesse. There is a good chance that we will see Nate Pearson this year. I just don't know the workload. Can't even fathom how he will perform at the big league level. I think the last time I watched him pitch in a major league game, right off the top of my head, he was pitching against the Red Sox in Fenway.
Yep.
And I don't think he got out of the third inning.
Sounds
I'm
about
not
right.
sure.
Yep.
Don't quote me on that. I don't know what the score was. I don't know what his final line was. And I don't even know what 2020 maybe. I don't know, man. But yeah, Ricky Tiedemann is the talk of the town. This kid's the real deal. He's going to go out there and he's going to show us and show the Toronto Blue Jays that he can pitch very well in spring training. Is he going to get the call right off the bat? I don't think so. But he will turn heads in spring training.
He's going to be the talk of spring.
And I think, Jesse, that if things do not go well for Mitch White or Yusei Kikuchi, that there is a possibility of a Ricky Tiedemann start before September. There's a very good I say before the call-ups and whatever else, but yeah, absolutely. But remember, Jesse, if Ricky Tiedemann is starting a game for us, in my opinion, something has gone wrong. Okay. I don't necessarily, if he does great, that's fine. But I mean, this guy is young. He's still got some growing to do. I know he's got the stuff. He's got the gym. He can pitch well. But I mean, minor league time is great for an arm like this. If he does well in spring training, there's going to be a lot of notes taken on it. But if he pitches for the Blue Jays this year, I think that something has gone wrong on the injury front, or a really dreadful performance out of one of our starter/spot starting pitchers somewhere along the lines.
Now, remember, he does only have about 1 month's worth of data above AA, and he was kind of taken off the kid's glove in AA. Now, I guess it's going to go one of two ways. Either the Jays are going to put him back there, and he's going to be fine, but not great. And if that's the case, they're only going to call him up if they need him. But what I'm hoping for, Riley, is he continues his dominance from last year, and he forces the Blue Jays to call him up. If he starts in New Hampshire and is good, and he goes to Buffalo and he's even better, the Jays are going to be forced to find a way to get this guy in this team, especially if we're competing for a playoff spot or in that wild card spot, and Ricky Tiedemann can help the team. I think it will be a good thing going forward. But we'll talk to him a little bit later as time goes on, because like I said, I'm sure he's going to be the talk of spring. This won't be the last time we talk about Ricky Tiedemann. But I wanted to get into the key positional battles, Riley, and I guess I should have waited about half an hour into the show before we really talk about what are people playing for in spring training, right? And there's a few on the diamond. I think there's always, we've kind of already talked about the fifth starter between Yusei Kikuchi and Mitch White. That's one of the big things. I think there's the second base position is kind of the big thing here, between how is Espinal, Biggio, Merrifield, and all that going to work itself out. And then obviously there's all the spots in the bullpen, and there's still a spot or two on the bench here, Riley. So out of these four positional battles that the Blue Jays are going through in spring, which one do you have your eye on the most?
Well, it's got to be where we're the deepest, and that would be at the natural second baseman. Mm-hmm. Now, Jesse, let's just get right into it and almost address kind of two things at once.
Sure, yeah.
So second base is really up for grabs. Yeah. I mean, I don't have a favorite to win right off the bat. Anyways, who we're referring to, it would be Whit Merrifield, Santiago Espinal, and Kevin Biggio. I'll tell you right off the bat that I don't think Kevin Biggio gets the starting job out of camp this year.
He'd have to have a really good spring, right? He'd have to show that his walk rate's there, the power's there. He'd have to have a really good spring.
I would have to think, Jesse, that the first game of the year and the first series of the year is at a majority played by Whit Merrifield is what I actually think is going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Espinal, or they split time fairly evenly, just because they still don't know who they're going to ride with. But here's the thing, Jesse. I think Whit as well. We don't actually really have a fourth outfielder on this club right now. So our thought when before the show, we talked a little bit and we said, Kevin Biggio has played the corner outfields and Whit Merrifield has played the corner outfields, and you can put Varsho in center. You can put Springer in center. That's not a non-option. I mean, you can use them wherever you'd like. I can't see Espinal playing any outfield, but what the hope is for this Blue Jays management is that either Springer, Varsho, or Kiermaier will be in the outfields at all time to patrol center field. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it would be a cold day in hell before Whit's playing left and Biggio's playing right.
It's possible.
I don't know. It's very possible, Jesse. And then Espinal play. I don't see Espinal getting any reps in the corner fields. I see him at second base. But yes, Cavan would have to have a very good spring. I think if Whit Merrifield has a poor spring, it's going to do a lot less in the minds of the managers and coaches. But I think if Espinal has a poor spring, it could kind of put him closer to the same level as Biggio in their minds. I mean, let's not get it twisted. He was an all-star, but there was a lot of kind of things starting to fall off for him at the end of the campaign last year. So, I mean, and we did get Whit Merrifield, and he was a baseball player once upon a time. Hell, he was a great baseball player once upon a time, Jesse. So I would be, very, very, very surprised to see Biggio start the season at second base. I think he is a great left-handed option against a right-handed pitcher when we're in need of a substitution there. No time at DH. I don't think any of these guys get any time at DH, but I see quite a bit of time being spent in the corner fields by Biggio and Whit Merrifield.
So what it's likely going to be, Riley, is I think it says something by having Whit Merrifield start down the stretch and start the 2 playoff games for the Toronto Blue Jays. I think Whit Merrifield is the leader to start at second base every time. But I think you mentioned it too. We don't have a fourth outfielder. George Springer isn't the most healthiest player. Kevin Kiermaier isn't the most healthiest player. There is a chance Whit Merrifield actually spends more time in the outfield this year than he does at second base, which leaves Espinal and Biggio. And Riley, the simplest way to go about it is Biggio's a left-handed hitter. Espinal's a right-handed hitter. Biggio will probably start against the lefties. Espinal will probably start against the righties. And let's be thought too, Biggio is probably our backup to Vladdy at first base. If that ever is a situation that, Brandon Belt is here. Never mind. Forget that. And, but let's also make the case here too, that Otto Lopez is ready. He got some times at the big league club last year. He can play middle infield. He's always had a good bat tool people like. And Addison Barger is another middle infielder here who is getting some reps in the corner outfield as well. That could really take a spot on this roster if someone like Espinal or Biggio struggles. So I think you want to look at the 3 starters plus these 2 guys and see how they all mingle. If Barger has a big spring and makes this team out of camp, it could be limited at bats for the other guys. So keep an eye on that this spring.
Yeah, you want to roll with the guy who's playing the best ball. Historically, second base, obviously not a position that contributes a whole lot on the offensive side of the ball, right, Jesse? So, I mean, you want to talk about X factors, second base could be a great X factor position. We could have a guy, if we decided at the start of the year, Jesse, that only one guy is going to get the job and play 150 games, we could have a guy have a negative like 1.5 WAR season, or we could have a guy have a 2.2, 2.5 WAR season, depending on how things go. I mean, but we're obviously not going to do that. Our option is to platoon a lot of these guys.
Yeah. And
I think that's good. And I think that, it takes a lot off the players playing so many games. Not everyone is Cal Ripken Jr. I mean, guys need the rest nowadays. And listen, if Barger makes his team out of camp, I would be a little bit surprised, but not at the same time. We see his bat coming around, and the fact that he's getting reps in the corner fields, I think that's great. Learn to play another position if you can, man. What's going to get you on a major league team fastest if you're contributing on the side of the bat? Because, I mean, hell, man, fielding's the easy thing in baseball. But if you're doing the hitting thing fine, that's great. I mean, we need someone who can be hitting for us at second base, or whoever's playing behind him and getting reps in the corner fields too would be great.
All right, let's touch on the 5th starter thing. We've kind of already made our point. It's Yusei Kikuchi versus Mitch White, and the fact that Mitch White went through some shoulder procedures already this spring and isn't exactly ready to go makes it seem like it's Yusei Kikuchi's spot to lose right now, which is scary because we saw Kikuchi pitch a lot last year and was not that good, to be honest. But there's hope. Blue Jays, Ross Atkins keeps talking him up. Yusei Kikuchi has a beard this year now, Riley, which I don't know if that will do anything, but it can't hurt his pitching performance now, getting bearded Yusei Kikuchi up there. But remember, there are other names here. Drew Hutchison is on a spring training invite without any options. Casey Lawrence is out of options, so they will get an extended look to pitch well this spring training. And we've already talked about Ricky Tiedemann, how he could force this way. Thomas Hatch and Trent Thornton are both still somehow on this roster, right? And they've survived the winter without getting DFA'd, so they will get a look as well. So there are guys to replace Kikuchi, including Zach Thompson, who I think we're both talking about as well, who could open the door if he still struggles to someone else get reps on this team.
We think that, we think that it's going to be first guy through the wall after, someone gets bloodied up in the battle. And that being said, if Mitch White's not at 100% and Kikuchi is our 5th starter, Our panic button right now, our first panic button will be Zach Thompson. I feel like if anything's to go wrong, there's a good possibility he'll start in Buffalo. That obviously not set in stone whatsoever, just Jesse and my thoughts. But Zach Thompson has had a very weird MLB career that's only lasted 2 years. Yeah. He pitched well for the Marlins, did not do well with the Pirates. So we're in a totally different division, in a totally different league. Mm-hmm. I mean, not that matters, Jesse, but I mean, of course, I'm probably not going to be dialed in, focused on him, but I want to see what this kid can do and how he performs. And if, I think he can be effective or not. And right off the bat, I mean, I'm a little bit torn, but you can never have too many good pitchers. And if he's on, I mean, we got to go with our best
100% here. And
guys, and if it's Zach Thompson, then it's Zach Thompson. We go with them.
Okay. I want to talk about, I guess we got the bullpen and the bench, Riley. And I want to let's go through our offense first while we're on the subject. So let's say Kirk, Vlad, Merrifield, Bo, Chapman, Varsho, Kiermaier, Springer, Brandon Belt are our starting 9, including our DH, right? If that's the case, that leaves Kevin Biggio, Santiago Espinal, and Danny Jansen on the bench. That's 3 names. The Jays are going to carry 4, if not a 5th bench person. So there are some names here that are competing essentially for this last spot. So we've already mentioned a few of them. Addison Barger, Otto Lopez are a couple options that we talked about. Spencer Horwitz, who's playing for Israel on the team, on the World Baseball Classic there. His name is another one to keep an eye on. Maybe the Jays decide to carry a 3rd catcher, especially if they're going to DH Kirk or Jansen quite frequently, and Dalton Varsho has time going to be limited behind the plate. Maybe they carry a 3rd one. Maybe Rob Brantley is this guy. We have also talked about the Jays needing some outfielders. Well, aside from these guys, maybe Winton Bernard, who got a cup of coffee with the Rockies last year, who was in camp on a minor league deal, could do this. Remember, Riley, Gosuke Kato made the opening day roster for the Blue Jays last year, and I think at this time last year, we never would have thought that was even possible. So there's always going to be something that could happen to get a guy on the bench this year. And I don't know, Riley, do you have a dark horse candidate of who's going to be this last guy on the bench? What do you think?
I mean, I think that one of the guys on the bench, Jesse, I think that he's already seen some MLB time. I think it's going to be Otto Lopez is going to get one of those spots. I have a good feeling this is a bred Blue Jay. He's been bred through our system. This is a guy that we like. I think this is a guy that coaches like, the organization likes, that he is a middle infielder with a good bat. He could supply us with some good power if he needed to. And as far as the defensive sides, it's less important, Jesse. It's certainly important to the game of baseball, but we definitely want to get guys in who are going to, at least if they're going to get on base, that's great. If they're going to hit for power, they're going to hit for power. But I mean, he's going to be probably a bench guy. He will get the least amount of time. Out of the guys we mentioned that are probably going to get a spot, as far as the other spot, Barger would be cool. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I mean, it's a good possibility. And if we did decide to roll with a 3rd catcher, Jesse, would not be the worst idea. Mm-hmm. I mean, when we expanded to a 26-man roster ahead of a 25-man roster, I thought the first position that could probably use the extra was the position at catcher. A lot of other teams might have thrown an extra bullpen arm in there, and I think that was the consensus there. But I think having a 3rd catcher that could when you have first of all, when you have a team where your catcher is probably going to DH a lot of the times anyways, I think that you almost have to have another catcher on your bench there. We have Varsho, who can play catcher, but maybe don't want to take him away because of how valuable he is in the field. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Rob Brantley, sure. I could see it, man. I could see Otto Lopez. I could see Barger. I would be surprised, but I could still see it. Aside from that, don't really know, Jesse. We kind of have our, we're kind of limited. Horowitz would be a cool one. It would be a great story. I'm probably going to play a lot of AAA ball this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if he plays the whole year out there.
Barger is actually my choice of who I think might come up and claim that, just because he hit so well with the bat going through the second half of last year, making it all the way up to Buffalo AAA. And he's a stone's throw away. And if he impresses this spring, look out. And it's going to be that guy who impresses this spring is going to be the guy who takes this last spot on the roster. Now let's move on to the bullpen, Riley. And who are your locks I'd imagine we're both thinking Romano, Garcia, Swanson, Meza, and Bass, right? Probably our 5 locks for this bullpen, guaranteed to be there.
Yeah, just sorry to create dead noise there, but yeah, absolutely. We got, Romano, we got Garcia, we got Swanson, we got Bass
and Meza for the lefty.
Tim Meza lefty. Yeah, I would say that you've got us to that. You got us there, Jesse. So that leaves us with what? 2 more spots to fill?
Right. And so there's still Adam Cimber, Trevor Richards, and whoever loses that 5th starter battle between Mitch White and Yusei Kikuchi, right? Those guys should be there, but we'll see. And even if not, you still have guys Zach Pop, Nate Pearson, Yasver Zuleta, Julian Fernandez, Adrian Hernandez. And then if you even want another lefty, you have to go Paul Fry, Brandon Eisert. Riley, I think I just named 10 names there that could all go into this bullpen. And some of them who are major league ready pitchers who don't have anything left to prove in AAA, but might have to be forced to go to AAA. So who do you think makes this spot in the bullpen here?
I mean, it's got one of them's got to be Adam Cimber, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
he did.
Yes.
I don't think he had a great year last year. I think that he was almost at one point he was the setup man for us. I think he lost that job. I think he doesn't go back to that job. But I think with between his pitch delivery and his sinking fastball and his pitch mix and delivery mix for later in ball games can throw a lot of guys off when they've had a guy pitch 95, 96 over the course of 7 innings and then have him do that. What my pick, Jesse, my personal pick is gotta be Zach Pop. He is already impressed me quite a bit last year, and I think he's a young guy. I think he's a fantastic guy to roll with, Jesse. I don't know if that's the case. If I'm looking to build if my future Jays team, Jesse, my 2027 Blue Jays team, let's say, has Zach Pop on it because I want a relief pitcher like Zach Pop. I want Zach Pop. I think he's going to be great this year whenever we use him, and I think he's pitched fine over the sample size major league career he's had already.
Some of the pitching metrics for Zach Pop too look phenomenal. Like his fastball velocity is up there too. I don't know the full detail. Yeah, and even in last year, he was really good at suppressing hard contact and all this stuff. So it looks very good. He was really good at getting swing and misses out of the zone. There is an elite pitcher in Zach Pop somewhere. But the problem is, Riley, like Trevor Richards, who was in the back end of our bullpen and battled inconsistencies at times. I still really like that changeup. And now with if Trevor Richards struggles early in the year, he's at risk of being DFA'd, which kind of sucks because he's been good at times. I remember when the Blue Jays had big bullpen issues in the 2020 season. It wasn't until we traded for Adam Cimber and Trevor Richards that our bullpen really got together. So it's going to be a battle for everybody in this back end of the rotation because gone are the days that Anthony Banda is coming up or we get a 38-year-old Sergio Romo coming in here to pitch for these teams. Like it's these guys and they have lots of options. So if you are not performing, there is going to be somebody coming up here to take your job. So it's put up or shut up time for the back end of this Toronto Blue Jays, which breeding healthy positional battles is always a good thing because it forces players to play at their best. Going back to guys like Cimber, I still think they have to prove that they're on the team. I think really the only locks at this point, Jesse, there might, besides Tim Meza being a lefty, that clearly gives him an edge. Yeah. But I think 3 locks that we throw down are going to be Garcia, Swanson, and Jordan Romano in that closer spot. I don't even really give one to Anthony Bass just yet. Had a fantastic year last year, but there's a lot of hard contact, and those numbers will be backed up. But I mean, if he's outperformed by Zach Pop, then I don't know. I mean, it's still probably going to go to Anthony Bass. The leash could be shorter for a guy like that. Trevor Richards, I'd never been a Trevor Richards fan. I mean, he's a good pitcher. There's no doubt about it. He's had a decent career as an MLB reliever right now. But if we have to DFA him, Jesse, I wouldn't really be that disappointed. There are relief pitchers are maybe not as a dime a dozen as they used to be, but they still come in bunches, man. And Trevor Richards could go somewhere else and haul some innings, but there's no way that he's going to sit, in the minor leagues for too long. I think that this is the time for when guys like that either they play for their
the next year of their career. And I think, if he doesn't pitch well, we might not see him in a major league uniform next year. It's kind of that time for a relief pitcher of that caliber.
So that's where things stand in spring. Watch for that in the spring training. If like a guy like Trevor Richards struggles during spring, he could be at risk till hell not even make the opening day roster, which would be saying something. We got some news and notes as we're running out of time here, Riley. The home run jacket, which the Blue Jays have used for a while, it might not be there this year. There was some rumblings from Rob Longley of the Toronto Star that said, quote, "It wouldn't be surprising if the Blue Jays try to go with something different this year after a team hits a home run." I know the Red Sox have the wheelbarrow that they run through the dugout whenever someone goes. And my personal favorite is in San Diego. They have like the WWE wrestling belt that they bring out whenever someone hits a home run. So Riley, what would you want to see the Blue Jays use for a home run celebration this year?
Do you know what my favorite home run celebration is, Jesse?
Mm-hmm.
It's when you hit a home run, round first base coach probably doesn't say anything to you, but you go for that low five with the third base coach. Sure, you come back, give your thing to your guy on deck, guy on the hole, right up the stairs. Manager taps you on the shoulder, and you get three pops from your teammates, and you sit back down on the bench because I think it's ridiculous. I know it sells tickets. I am an old school guy as far as that goes. I mean, go crazy. I mean, guys are going nuts. I remember, look at the poster behind me when Joe Carter, he was leaping up and down when he won the World Series. There was guys.
Pretty big home run, though.
Yeah, huge. He could have done cartwheels and no one would have said anything. I was watching. They implemented it in MLB The Show 23, the Rhys Hoskins bat slam.
Yes, that was awesome.
It was awesome. But, Jesse, is it necessary? I don't think it is. And then he probably went back and had a huge celebration in the dugout. Keep it simple. Keep it modest, guys. If you hit your 400th career home run, go nuts. I know it sells tickets, Jesse. I know there's a lot of people who will disagree with me. Have fun. Don't get me wrong. God, fun. That I don't know what's wrong with you.
Well, that's the thing too. The Jays have always done this too. The fans have really liked the home run jacket, but there was a point down the stretch last year where I think Matt Chapman even said I'm not sure this is what it is. When you're losing 8-1, we'll put the jacket on, I guess, but it's not that big of a deal. They are going to do something to the effect. I'm not sure what it is, but with our manager, John Schneider, coming in and saying they wants to create a better culture into this clubhouse, a winning culture, maybe it might be something more to what you're saying. But I'm curious to see what the Blue Jays come up with because it's going to be something, and people are going to be asking questions about it. Some other news and notes. Victor Martinez, longtime Cleveland Indian at the time, now Guardians, has joined the front office to be a special assistant. He knows Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro well from his long time there.
Yes.
I don't exactly know what his role is going to be. He's just, quote, a special assistant in the Blue Jays front office. So whatever that might do, but Victor Martinez was a fun guy to watch. Alejandro Kirk is expecting the birth of a child, so he might not show up to camp until later on. Quick thought about those two pieces of news, Riley?
So right off the top, does Victor Martinez have the most switch hit home runs of all time as a catcher? Or is it Jorge Posada? As a Jorge Posada, Veritek, Martinez, it's one of those guys, but wow, that's great. One of my favorite catchers to watch. He played in a dynamic catcher era, I think personally, where there was a lot of good catchers. Yes, Victor Martinez did play some first base. I, of course, remember him as a catcher, though, where he did a great job for the Cleveland team. And yeah, he had some good seasons, and no means is he going into the Baseball Hall of Fame. But to have an ex-baseball player of that caliber come into our organization and hold a position of specialist or whatever you want to call it, it's still pretty cool. I love when the game of baseball is surrounded by former greats or former all-star players. I mean, hey man, that's awesome. If he can contribute in any way, I'm sure his knowledge of the game is great. If he goes down to Venezuela and picks up a 15-year-old kid and we sign him and he turns out to be the best thing in 2038 or 2040, then sure, that's awesome.
Victor Martinez, 246 career home runs. Jorge Posada, 275. So Posada's got him beat there, and I'm sure there are others on the list. And John Schneider, our manager, this just happened this morning. I don't want to say he's a hero, but John Schneider might be a hero. There was a report he was having a meal at a steakhouse or something when somebody else at the restaurant started choking on their food, and John Schneider went over, Girl couldn't breathe and basically performed the Heimlich maneuver on her and saved their life. So just another act of heroism, and the man that John Schneider is going to be leading this team. That's what leaders do. So props to you. I guess we haven't given up thumbs up yet because we haven't got the season, but we're giving our first thumbs up of the season to John Schneider. So good on you, Mr. Schneider.
That is a heroic duty. I'm sure that's not something easy to do. That would really rattle your cage. It takes a lot of composure. I mean, kudos to him, man. You got to have composure. You got to react to things like that. It's a moment of panic. And, you want to talk about the game of baseball. You have to start with the game of life and humanity and things like that. So good on John Schneider. And I'm sure he got a great appreciation from her, the family, whoever was involved around that. I think that's very special. Of course, something you do not want to have happen, especially, you're sitting at dinner and really don't expect that. So yes, yeah, no, I would go out, Jesse. I'm going out and just calling that straight heroic. Yep. Good for John Schneider. And I hope that good mojo carries with us and the Toronto Blue Jays over the course of this year.
Well, that'll do it for our episode here today, guys. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. There are a few news and notesy stuff, like position players, pitching rules. We know about the bigger bases. We've talked about this stuff in prior episodes. Sorry, but go back and listen to them. We're actually going to get to see those this spring too. So aside from all the players that we wanted to talk about, these are some things that can pay attention to this spring as well, and we'll see how that goes into effect. We'll talk about those a little bit more as the season goes on. But Riley, we are officially, by the time we have our next episode here, we are going to have spring training games to talk about. Stuff is going to be happening. More words are going to come out. So please stay locked into the channel here to get all things related to the Toronto Blue Jays. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. We're making YouTube shorts now. Guys, we're on iTunes now. It took us way too long to get on iTunes, but we finally are. So if you're on there, please leave a 5-star review. Leave us a comment. Anything can to help the algorithm go. Tell a buddy, Say if you learned something cool, a cool new stat today, say you heard it from the Buds and Blue Jays. That would go a long way to getting this going. But Riley, anything else to add before we call it a day today?
Yeah, real quick, if you could see this, this is from last year's opening day, my cup here, Jesse. It's got a little faded from the dishwasher, so I'm sure. really counting on getting a new cup for the 2023 year. Of course, beautiful Blue Jays blue and a nice drinking glass for myself. Yeah, dude, I'm stoked for baseball. That was our preseason preview. And Jesse, I'm really excited, man. We got to get through this. Let's keep the guys healthy. Let's play smart ball, but let's play good ball out there.
Absolutely. And then coming up, we're into full preview mode. We got our official Blue Jays season preview. We got to do our bold predictions episode. We got to take a look around the AL East. We've got a Blue Jays X Factors episode coming up. Whole bunch more to look forward to as we get through February and into the month of March before it's officially baseball season. So please make sure you're locked on to Buds and Blue Jays. That would be great. That'll be it, guys. We'll see you again next week.
Thanks, guys.